In the lead-up to Australia Day on January 26, the date of our national holiday is being hotly contested more than 80 years after it was established. While many Aussies are grateful for the public holiday, often spent at the beach or lapping up the warm weather over backyard barbecues, the date is not a happy one for Australia's Indigenous people. Luci Dixon, 7, Levi Dixon, 3, Charlie Delane, 12, and Emily Camporeale, 4, prepare for Aus Day celebrations in Adelaide. Picture, Karen Stevens. Source: News Corp Australia. January 26, a historical day. Contrary to what Deputy Nationals leader Bridget McKenzie thinks, most Australians are aware that on January 26, 1788, Captain Arthur Phillip rode ashore at Sydney Cove. He then raised the Union Jack and proclaimed British sovereignty over part of the continent. While the First Fleet's arrival is celebrated on this date, the actual naming of Australia Day happened almost 150 years later. Initially referred to as First Landing Day, Foundation Day and later Anniversary Day, Indigenous Australians recall the First Fleet's arrival along with the mass murder of Indigenous peoples that followed. For this reason, some Aboriginal communities refer to January 26 as Invasion Day. In fact, the phrase has been used to mobilize thousands across the nation planning to attend Invasion Day rallies on Australia Day this year. The Greens are also encouraging Aussies around the country to attend, with West Australian Senator Rachel Siewert throwing her support behind the initiative last week. Invasion Day is about acknowledging the truth about our history, she wrote on Facebook. Changing the date is just the start of the journey, and we have a long way to go in achieving justice for First Nations people and treaty IEs. I hope you'll stand in solidarity with our First Nations community, and join me at an Invasion Day rally on January 26, instead of changing the date of. Let's mourn the terrible aspects and celebrate the good aspects of our history and future. Let's observe the good and bad about Australia. In fact, prominent public figures are reigniting the debate on greater platforms. Today's new entertainment reporter, Brooke Boney, is one such advocate. Diving headfirst into the debate while live on air, Boney drew on her Indigenous heritage to pinpoint why a date change was so important. I'm part of that community. I'm a Gamilaroi woman, my family's from northern NSW, been there for about 60,000 years or so, Boney said. This date comes up every year. I'm not trying to tell anyone else what they should do or how they should be celebrating. But I feel like I have more reason than anyone to love this country as much as I do. I can't separate the 26th of January from the fact that my brothers are more likely to go to jail than school, or that my little sisters and my mum are more likely to be beaten or raped than anyone else's sisters or mum. And that started from that day. For me it is a difficult day and I don't want to celebrate it. Any other day of the year I will tie an Australian flag around my neck and run through the streets. I will not be celebrating. At Zoe Chapeller, January 14, 2019. A history of changing dates. While there's been a lot of angry debate around changing the date, Australia Day wasn't uniformly celebrated on January 26 for decades. Not until 1935 did all the Australian states and territories use that name to mark that date. And it is only since 1994 that Australia Day has consistently been celebrated as a public holiday on January 26 by all states and territories. Related, debunking the myth of Australia Day. Related, Scott Morrison calls for a second special day to recognise Indigenous Aussie-related citizen ceremonies to be compulsory on Australia Day. Those in favour of a date change also mention a popular conspiracy theory about Captain Arthur Phillip's historic speech, allegedly given at the flag-raising ceremony on arrival at Sydney Cove on January 26, 1788. The speech goes totally unmentioned in his own published biographies. Additionally, 3 eyewitnesses to the flag-raising ceremony all recorded their memories of the event, again, sans speech, as taking place on February 7, 1788. Supports a more inclusive Australia Day by changing the date. Give me a solid reason why changing the date from the 26th of January to, e.g., the 27th of January is a bad thing. Reason can't be because of tradition. Because of history.